Good morning, everyone. We'll give it just a minute to let everybody log in.
See anybody else coming in?
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us for our November Community Cafe. I'll be your MC today, and Amber will be checking the chat box and putting links in there for you all. So welcome. And I think November is one of my favorite cafes because we try to focus on first responders and veterans, and that's what we're going to be doing today. Our first speakers are from OptiHealth, and it's Mike and Stacy Sweeney. And with that, I will turn it over to you.
All right. Well, good morning. Thank you for the introduction and happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I'm guessing you're all getting prepared. But we just wanted to take a couple of minutes this morning and talk about OptiHealth and mainly about OptiVets, our 501c3, where we're treating PTSD and TBI and veterans and first responders. And we'll share our PowerPoint here with you real quick. Jerry, can I get a thumbs up? You see? Okay. All right, here we go. So OptiVets came about earlier this year. We had a nonprofit, veteran nonprofit that came to us at OptiHealth, asked us if we could, this is actually a couple of years ago, they asked us if we could start tailoring some of the work that we do at OptiHealth toward PTSD and TBIs for veterans. And so out of all of that came OptiVets, and I'll just kind of walk through here and tell you about what we're doing. If it will go to the next slide, give me 1 second.
Earlier.
I did earlier, sorry. Okay, so our mission at OptiVets is obviously to treat the root causes of PTSD, TBIs, veterans and first responders. And we look at this, our medical team looks at this from a physical standpoint, that to really get to the heart of PTSD and TBI symptomology, we have to work on the physical aspects of the body and the brain. And so you can see in the bottom portion of the mission there that we do this through a combination of modalities, which we'll go over today, IV nutrients and focused supplementation. Next, and I don't think anybody really needs to understand the full scope of PTSD and TBI. I think we get it if you are watching the news or you're remotely informed. But PTSD and TBIs are huge among our veteran population, and even PTSD, which we have found over the last year, is even possibly even more prevalent in our first responder communities. And it just goes unreported often. And so there's some statistics here, but really what we're trying to get to the point of is, PTSD, TBI, symptomology, the depression, the hypervigilance, the anxiety and lack of sleep ultimately can lead to suicides. And that's really, that's the worst outcome. And we're trying to roll that back so that we can get even past the other symptomologies where people can start living their best lives again. Mm-hmm. Here's how we do it. So our protocol involves oxygen modalities, and you can see a picture here of our hyperbaric chamber that we have. The gentleman on the bike is doing something called EWOT, exercise with oxygen, or there's another clinical term. It's called IHIT, intermittent hypoxic, hyperoxic training, where you go between high oxygen concentrations and a hypoxic state. The other two pictures show our IV. We have a full IV suite in our clinic. We use NAD for our veterans and first responders and anyone else that's in a kind of a cognitive decline. And then the final picture there is neurofeedback. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go.
If I can,
Yep.
just going back to the oxygen modalities. So both of our oxygen modalities cause new nerve cells in the brain to be formed, cause new blood vessels in the brain to be formed. And that's how it heals the brain, because the brain doesn't understand if it's gone through a physical or emotional trauma. It reacts the same way. So we are trying to funnel oxygen to it to heal it in addition to changing the brainwave activity at the same time.
It's good. You want to start here?
Sure. So this shows some of the assessments that we use in our process. We do subjective assessments and we do EEG analysis. Our medical director also does a full medical workup on our participants prior to them starting our program, and she meets with them throughout the program. This is showing, this is one of our first couple veterans. This is a CEC. So this is how this veteran is rating these areas of problem, attention, impulsivity. You can see this. This is the same assessment done a month later, and then a same assessment on the bottom that was done after the 12-week program. So this is how this veteran is saying these things are improving.
Green is good.
Green is good. We want green. Red and yellow is what I would call red hot. So if you can see somebody struggling in all of those areas and they're rating it that high, they are really having a hard time functioning. But by the time we get to the end of the program and they're sleeping through the night, those anxious thoughts are going away. Most impulsivity goes away by the end of the program. But being able to pay attention to things is a game changer.
One of the other things we do in our assessments is, and all of our assessments are done pre-treatment, mid, and post. And so we're following our participants throughout the 12-week program. And part of this is cognitive function testing. We go through what used to be Cambridge Brain Science. It's called CREOS now, but it's all sorts of cognitive testing shapes and different things that you would do for any sort of if you went in for a cognitive assessment.
So based on the results of this test, we can see the areas of the brain that are still struggling or may need a little extra help with things like ping pong. So we're going outside the box with some treatment recommendations to help the brain heal.
Yeah, perfect. And then the other portion of our assessments are the PCL5 and the PQH9. And if you're you have experience with depression and PTSD scoring, these are the gold standard subjective tests. And all but one of our participants has gone from the PTSD threshold to sub-threshold. One of our participants was one of our veterans was strictly PTS or TBI, sorry, severe TBIs. And so we're loving the results. We're loving the outcomes, taking people out of that threshold of, in the PTSD or in a high depression state and bringing them into even an area where it doesn't even register as PTSD any longer.
And we have graduated our first police officer from the Statesville PD, and his results look exactly the same.
Yeah.
I would say one of the exciting things is there's 40 years of research behind hyperbaric oxygen and PTSD treatment. So we try to get everybody into that chamber. But if they have lung damage, say it's a veteran who has constrictive bronchiolitis from all of the things that they've inhaled overseas, and they have such severe lung damage that they have COPD, they can't get in our chamber. Or if they've had a lung biopsy, they can't get in our chamber. So we put those participants, including our police officer who had lung damage, on the bike, and we got the same result. So we're really excited about how this can progress the research in that field. And it seems like oxygen to the brain, forced oxygen, the heart is doing the pressure that a hyperbaric chamber would do, just a little bit more efficiently, right? And so this opens that kind of treatment up very quickly in a lot of different areas. It's hard to get a hyperbaric chamber in someplace, but the exercise with oxygen training system is very easy to take different places. All of our other equipment is very easy to take as well.
That's great. Here's one aspect of our PTSD program, PTSD and TBI program. We call it the OPTI protocol. This is, you probably hear this more and more, is the gut-brain axis, gut microbiome. It is so important that we start people on pro phytobiotics, nootropics on day one, so that their gut microbiome starts to get into a regulated state, because the signals that the gut microbiome gives to the brain are so important. And when people feel better, they get better. The work that we're doing, the healing work that we're doing through all the other modalities, works even faster, and people are more apt to continue through the protocol if they're instantly feeling better from the beginning.
This particular line of supplements, the Mentabiotics part, which has the prebiotics and probiotics in it, actually has a patent for its impact on mood. They have specific strains that decrease nervousness and agitation, which is fantastic. It increases dopamine and serotonin in your gut, and it increases GABA. So all those things that we normally would supplement, these are being created naturally in your body. Our veterans and our first responder who started on day one said, wow, I feel better. So our compliance with all the other things that we're asking them to do over a 3 months time period is much higher because they feel better.
That's great. Health coaching is a critical part of what we're doing. We're talking with our participants about sleep. Sleep is really the bedrock of any kind of health. Getting good sleep, quality sleep, thought patterns, obviously all the things that we go through here, increasing exercise, working on addictions, meditation, and then relationships. And one of the things that we're finding is that working through two things. Working through relationships becomes a big thing when people start feeling better and PTSD symptoms start to decrease. People want to start fixing those relationships that have been broken with people while they've been suffering. And so we're helping people through that. And then the other part of it is really coming up with a purpose. A lot of and I would say mostly our veterans who have been longtime PTSD or TBI have learned to live with a new normal of just being sick or being in a place where they don't ever think that they're going to feel better. And now there's a new normal, and we kind of jumped into this halfway through, is realizing we've got to help them for looking forward, because they feel great now. Now what? And so it's a good challenge to have.
Yeah. So 2 of our veterans have actually started vocational training through the VA and are planning to return into some vocation. They've both been out of work for years, thinking that they were unable to hold a job. So we're really excited about what this can do, not only for them, but for our communities.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, here's a little video.
So if you can imagine feeling kind of sluggish, heading into the red light bed, which decreases inflammation, increases energy. And come out supercharged.
So red light is a critical part of what we do as well. Like Stacy said, decreasing inflammation, increasing mitochondrial output, and we work this together with all of our oxygen modalities as well. So this is a critical portion of the Opti protocol.
And that supercharged dog was one of our veterans dogs, and
Yeah,
he
that's
said,
right.
"This is how I feel when I come out." So
Yeah.
that was up to him.
And then you want to talk about
Yeah,
neurofeedback
so
for a second?
neurofeedback is one of the key components to our protocol. This chart is really helpful at looking how neurofeedback can help people. So we're working with brainwave dysregulation. Mainly delta and theta are your deep sleep and your light sleep waves. And when they're dysregulated, those are the symptoms that you see. A lot of hyperemotionality, trouble with focus and attention, even dementia. So when we can get those into regulation, those focus and attention issues go away. Alpha dysregulation, those are the folks that have really sad or depressed thoughts. They often are self-deprecating. See that a lot in our veteran society or population. We see a lot of muscle pain, so fibromyalgia when alpha waves are too high. And beta rate dysregulation, those are the folks that can't turn their brain off. They're having anxiety attacks. They can't sleep. So I don't know if you know much about neurofeedback, but it is now FDA approved as a first line of defense for PTSD by our FDA, which is new and exciting. So it's really fantastic to include this with all of the other things that we're doing to heal the brain.
That's good. And then we're just kind of wrapping this up. Results, which everything we do, we're looking for results in the lives of our veterans and first responders. And so we do a case report on every single participant. And then we just went to the streets here and published our first 7 veteran results on the Opti protocol. We're pretty happy about that. It's got all of the research and explains exactly what we've talked about today, but in real scientific terms, and then the results as well. And if anybody would like to get a copy of that, please just let us know, and we'd be happy to show that to you. And I think that's about it. And this is us, optivets.org. We appreciate this time. We're obviously as a 501c3, we're always looking for support and to continue this mission.
I would let you all know that we have a huge waiting list to get into our program. So both from the veterans in our community, and we have a police chief who wants to get almost his entire department to go through the program. So we're really excited about what the future looks like.
And happy Thanksgiving.
Jerry, may I ask a question really quickly? And
Absolutely.
if I missed it, I apologize. Mike and Stacy, do you mind sharing? I know I don't want to assume that it depends on the need of the person's brain as to how long they're in the program, but can you speak to kind of how that's maybe ranged a little bit and what the commitment looks like, please?
Sure.
So it's typically a 12-week program. Now, if somebody comes in and they have more like physical damage due to TBI, they will get more hyperbaric sessions. Typically, we do 40 hyperbaric sessions and then shift into the bike for the last month. But if that brain damage is there, we're going to be a little bit longer in that chamber. If somebody has a lot of comorbidities, then there may be more IV nutrients involved in their care. And then we're constantly looking at their neurofeedback trainings and making assessments. Some people we keep in the trauma protocol longer than others. So we try to keep in that 12-week time period, but it is variable. And most people are in our clinic for 2 hours a day for 12 weeks, 1 day a week, up to 4 hours when they're getting their infusion. So it's a time commitment.
And Amber, the gold standard for hyperbarics is, kind of all research is about 40 sessions. And so we want to get our participants to that 40. And like Stacy said, some will go longer. We've had some who have gone partway through and then they've transitioned to the bike for one reason or another. But the results really have not been any different between the folks who have done the hyperbarics or who have done the EWAT IHIT oxygen modality. And I'll add one more thing. We can make this a 6-week program. but it's a lot more time intensive. It would be coming in the morning, doing, you know, a 2-hour block in the morning. And then we have to have about a 4-hour break between neurofeedback and hyperbarics or oxygen modalities for the body to recover. And then we would do something later in the afternoon. So it would be a 2 a day, but that would be much shorter, but much more intense.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mike and
Anyone
Stacy,
else?
thank you so much. Are there other questions?
I have a couple questions if you don't mind. So on your survey, when you're surveying the person out front, is that a manual survey they're doing, or is that an AI bot type of machine learning that will diagnose or give you a starting point with that individual?
Yeah, good question. So we don't diagnose anyone for PTSD or TBIs. Most, I would say, all of our veterans have come to us where the VA has diagnosed them, and all of the tests that they've gone through at the VA. I can't tell you exactly. I know that the PCL5, the PQH9, they've done all of those, and so we're repeating a lot of those same tests. But they are manual tests.
And our physician spends a lot of time with them, and she is very well versed in trauma. So if there are anything that comes up in that initial session, then she can kind of work with us to change what we're doing based on their needs.
Yeah, great. We have a Pathfinder program at the VA that we're doing an AI mental health assessment for remote people that can't get access to the VA to get them to facilities like yourselves. So is your facility a single facility in the Iredell County area then?
In Mooresville,
Mooresville.
just a block away from the Lowe's YMCA.
Copy.
And
Right.
we're looking forward to growing and being in more locations.
Well, I can talk to you offline, and there is a program that you can get into. It's called the Pathfinder program at the VA that will fund you to expand. So I'd be happy to talk to you about it.
Great.
Let's talk, sir.
Thank you.
Rob, if you want to put your email in the chat box for me, or I can connect you offline.
Thank you.
So the VA in DC is getting all of our results. They're going through another veteran organization. We're getting them our results, and then they send them off. And they've asked us to get 20 participants through the Opti protocol for them to see if they will fund the entire protocol. That's our goal. The other thing though is I think we'll always be fundraising because every spouse of someone who's gone through the protocol has asked to go through it as well, because the trickle down effect of trauma hits everybody in the family.
It's easy to understand the effects of secondhand smoke. Nobody talks about secondhand PTSD. And that's really an important thing, is that you don't live with the symptoms of PTSD and TBI in a bubble. Your family, your friends, your loved ones are all affected by it as well. And veterans and first responders are really, and I'm a veteran myself, we're just the tip of the iceberg. Almost everyone needs what we're doing. So.
And to clarify on the first responder, if a police officer is to say, I have PTSD, I need to get evaluated, they lose their gun, they lose their ability to work. And so we are working with this police chief to find grants so that his whole department can come through and get that preventative care without having to say I'm broken, because they're all afraid to lose their jobs.
Thank you so much, Mike and Stacy.
Our pleasure.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jerry.
If there's any other questions, if you want to put them in the chat box, we'll try to give some time at the end for other questions, but I greatly appreciate that presentation. Our next speaker is Paul Cochran with Purple Heart Homes. I've known Paul for a few years. Actually went to high school together, but Paul, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can share your PowerPoint and talk to us about Purple Heart Homes. Thank you very much.
Yeah, very good, Jerry. Thank you. And Jerry's not joking. He says a few years. I think we're in the 30s now or something like that. So it's been a while. Yeah, let me get back here. Bear with me, guys. I've got a little nipple here I'm dealing with. All right. Can everyone see? Can everyone see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, very good. So I don't really know who knows much about Purple Heart Homes, and I'll be brief and give you the cliff note of Purple Heart Homes. Our two co-founders, John Galena and Dale Beatty, were local National Guard guys here in Statesville, to the unit over on Hartness Road here in Statesville. In 2004, they were activated and sent to Iraq and attached to the regular army. Dale was a full-time Guard guy, so that was his day job. And John, as luck would have it, or luck as just fate would have it, I'd say, was a custom home builder. So they go to Iraq in November 2004. They hit an IED. John was driving the Humvee. Dale was in the passenger seat. Humvee was just destroyed, and you'll see a video here shortly that'll show you what that looks like with some actual footage from the battlefield in Iraq. But Dale lost both his legs. So after about a year and a half in Walter Reed and getting his prosthetics and healing from this traumatic injury, they come home, and Dale was married with two young kids at the time and didn't have a home that was handicap accessible or fit for a newly double amputee soldier. So John, being a custom home builder, said, "You know what? I know how to help my battle buddy." And he rallied the community, and every you can't imagine. I was lucky enough to volunteer on that project. It's where I met these guys. And that was in late 2007, early 2008. John rallied the community. It was every civic organization, every veteran service organization, volunteers, corporate partners, foundations just came out of the woodworks to support this effort. So when it was done, when Dale's home was done, he just had this idea to pay this forward. And that's really the beginning and the birth of Purple Heart Homes. Again, you'll see that in the video. So it's about as organic of a beginning as you can have for a veterans charitable organization. Custom home builder and his battle buddy. And now the battle buddy needs a house that's adapted to his needs. So August 26th of this year, we celebrated our 16th year. So we're not new to this game. And our mission is to honor those who serve by providing housing solutions and employment opportunities to qualified veterans. So we changed our mission statement in January 2022 from strictly a housing indicated mission statement to employment opportunities, because we build tiny homes at our facility here in Statesville. We have 23,000 square feet of dedicated manufacturing space, and we are licensed by the state of North Carolina as a certified manufacturer of homes. And when I say a tiny home, most people think of what they see on TV and some of these shows. The tiny homes there, those are what's known as a park model tiny home. They're built and have to be financed very much like an RV would be. Our tiny home product is a traditionally built house that meets every state and local code, every HUD requirement, and qualifies for a traditional mortgage. They're just a small product. And we wanted to do that because even though they're smaller, we just didn't want to give our veterans that had a housing need, we didn't want to give them anything lesser. So that's kind of why we decided to do it the way we do it. And we've built 17 of these homes to date and put them out. And I'll talk a little bit more as we go through about how we've used them. That's a little bit about Purple Heart Homes, its beginning and the tiny home program. And primarily what we do is critical home repair and needs and repairs based on health, safety, and accessibility needs of the veteran. And you can think about that from anywhere from a simple wheelchair ramp to widening doorways to taking up carpet and putting down hardwood floors or laminate floors, so the wheelchair rolls a little easier, ADA compliant bathrooms, mold remediation, roofs, HVACs, you name it. We do all those things at no cost to the veteran. And it's really the need of the veteran when we do our assessment is what we decide to do. And those three words, health, safety, and accessibility, are kind of in that order. Because say you need a wheelchair ramp, but we get this all the time. A veteran calls and says, "Hey, I need a wheelchair ramp. I've had this issue. This put me in a wheelchair and needed some accessibility into my home." So our team goes out and does a needs assessment. Well, you get into the home and there are holes in the floor. or there are some impediments in the house, right? Maybe the roof's been leaking and there is mold in the home. Well, fine, well, and good, we give you access to your house, but we're giving you access to an unhealthy home. So we'll address those needs as well. And this is, I'm going to piggyback a little bit too on what Mike and Stacy said earlier about how PTSD, TBIs, and all the issues that veterans, first responders face trickle down to the family members. Well, that's true. And we see that. Not only does our housing solutions that we provide impact the veteran, it impacts everybody living in the home. The wife, the husband, the caregiver, the children, whatever that might be. And we believe that everything, it's a holistic approach. We believe, and I'm going to use a little military parlance here, everybody needs a base, a safe space, right? From which to launch, a hub and spoke, right? Whatever they're going to go and do, go to work, go socialize, go visit with family, go to kids' ball games, right? Everybody needs a safe place to come back home to. And that's part of it. And that's a place to heal as well. It's a physical space to heal with all the other avenues of support and treatments that they may be going through. And that's everything from what Mike and Stacy provide, which I've heard a lot of feedback on that, which is just awesome. I need to come down and help maybe figure out how to sleep a little better. So we'll talk about that. We just want to be a part of the solution. And Purple Heart Homes, that's what we do. We're part of the solution by providing that safe space and the base from which to call home or from which to launch. There's picture Dale and John, pre-injury and post-injury, as you can see Dale there with missing both legs. And is this gonna, I thought this was an embedded video. I'm sorry. That's supposed to be an embedded video. This is an ABC News Nightline special that was shot in 2011 and rebroadcast in 2012. I don't know if you guys know the story of Bob Woodruff, ABC News anchor, was embedded with some troops in Iraq, IED explosion. He went through some pretty serious injuries and something very similar to Dale's and John's experience, although he didn't lose any limbs. And if I can figure out, and if we have time at the end, or I'll pop the link in the chat here and you guys can watch this video. It's about 7 minutes long. And I'll call it our origin story of Purple Heart Homes. And as mentioned, it's about as organic as it can be. So to date, we've completed 1,455 projects in 46 states and Puerto Rico. We have served a total with those efforts, 3,400 veterans. And what that represents is some of the community projects that we engage in and some of the multi-veteran households that we've served. And a good example of a community-based project would be Richard's Coffee Shop down in Mooresville. We've done a lot of work for them, and they have just, I don't know how many veterans pass through Richard's during the course of a year, during the course of a month. But if you haven't been there, I highly suggest you go down there and check out Richard's Coffee Shop on Main Street in Mooresville. Every Thursday morning is free veterans coffee, and it's just a good time to go in there and have some good conversation with veterans from all eras, from World War II on up to current day. So as I mentioned earlier, we have our Aging in Place program, which is our critical home repair. It's the bulk of what we do. We do about 200 to 220 projects for veterans a year, and about 85% of those are the Aging in Place program. We had the Home Opportunity Program, and within the Home Opportunity Program, we changed that up from a home ownership program a couple of years ago to put our then 3 programs in under one umbrella. So with the Home Opportunity Program, we have our home ownership program, we have our tiny home program, we have a rental program. I should say had. For our home ownership program and our rental program, the rental program was driven by a need of home ownership, but where the veteran just couldn't qualify for a mortgage. We're donated homes from banks, from bank-owned properties, and from individuals who leave us homes in their estates. So we have an inventory of home, and this was really an active program pre-COVID, and as the moratoriums on foreclosures and evictions took place during COVID. And then after COVID, the institutional investor buying the housing stock from the banks the donation to organizations like ours was no longer attractive. So these programs are lesser than what they were. But what we do is with these homes, we don't know where they're going to be. We just accept them whenever it makes sense for us to do so. Say we accept a home in Greenville, South Carolina, and we have a veteran in Greenville, South Carolina, or we have a veteran that's willing to relocate to Greenville, South Carolina. We will assess the need of that veteran, whatever that might be, a fully handicapped accessible home, or maybe the veteran's fully ambulatory and doesn't really need anything except for a home. We will build that home out to whatever the need of that veteran is. We will get a final appraisal, and then we assist the veteran to get a first and primary mortgage for half of that final appraised value of the home. So if the home appraises for $300,000, the veteran gets a mortgage for $150,000. We encumber the other $150,000 of equity into a soft second mortgage. It's non-interest bearing, it's non-payment bearing, but we kind of tie that equity up for about 5 years. And if at the end of 5 years, the veterans made the primary mortgage payments on time, kept the property taxes paid, homeowners insurance paid, at the end of 5 years, we release that equity to the veteran, and it's the veteran's house to do with what he or she may. So that spawned, as I said, that spawned our rental program. We had veterans that just couldn't qualify for a mortgage even at that 50% LTV, or maybe they were in some sort of a transitory state in life and just need a place to stay. We started taking some of these homes and building them out, and then assisting the veteran into a rental situation with a lower than market value, fair market value rental rate, wherever these homes might be. And then in 2020, we put our first tiny home out into the veteran space. We had a female veteran in upstate South Carolina who during COVID, because of COVID, lost her job and lost her home, and at the same time was diagnosed with breast cancer. Her family had some land with a well that she had access to. She had gone and bought a 10 by 16 storage building at one of the big box stores and found an old clawfoot tub. And she was living in that unheated, uncooled storage building and taking a bath out there, heating water on a little hot plate, just enough to warm up water out in her clawfoot tub to fill it up as you would fill up a horse trough. So we learned about her, and we just said we can do better than that for you. So she was a recipient of our very first tiny home down in Greenville, South Carolina. And to date, we've put homes out to veterans in 2 in South Carolina, 1 in Kentucky, 2 in Mississippi, and the rest of them have been here in North Carolina. And how we've been able to use them is not only to provide them directly to veterans who are homeless or housing insecure. We've been able to provide 6 of them to our local homeless shelter here, which is 5th Street Ministries, and that's to help them further their veterans transitional housing program. They have a 6-bed facility over on Wilson Lee Boulevard here in Statesville. They had a need for some additional space and then some independent living space. So we were able to get some grant funding to build these homes and provide them to 5th Street. And as I understand it, the program is going well. We'll support more in the future as we can. And we've provided these, or in the process of providing some of these out to other organizations that offer wraparound or other services to veterans. One's called the Veterans Farm of North Carolina, which is a working farm when veterans want to come there. They live there. They're multi-month or 1-year programs where they can come and learn farming practices, sustainable farming practices, learn how to operate equipment if they want to so choose to do that. So we're happy to help in that space. And also another veterans retreat, if you will, is called Camp for Heroes. We're providing some homes to them so they can grow their operation and efforts to help more veterans. So that's what we do. We can't do it all. We'd be naive and arrogant both to believe that we had all the answers and could supply for all the needs. So we want to work with everybody that can use what small part we can play, which is the housing space. We want to provide that, our product, to them so they can go do more and better for veterans. So here's our tiny home. It's a 10 by 32, 320 square feet. And I invite any or all of you on the call today to come to our facility here in Statesville. We're at 755 Washington Avenue, right just off Center Street, to come by and see our facility, come and check out a tiny home and and just check things out, see what we do and meet our team. So here's our tiny homes. You'll see in the upper left-hand corner there, that's a steel metal structure. That is nothing more than a dolly that we've constructed to build these homes on. As I said, these homes are built not with a permanent steel frame, and they're not movable. They are set on a traditional foundation, as you'll see in the picture on the right. They're craned on. Once they get onto the site, build every state and local code, meet every HUD requirement. So as Stacy said, we're always going to be fundraising. There's always going to be the need. We're never going to be able to address every bit of need that's out there. We have 2 years ago, we were receiving an average of 3.7 applications per day for veterans that needed our assistance. And we just don't, and we did a presentation for our board of directors at that same time. And at that time, 2 years ago, if we stopped our application pipeline and took the applications that we had in our pipeline now, with the average project cost of what had been asked for from the veteran or whatever the need was for the veteran, it would take us 7 years and $17 million to address that need that existed 2 years ago. So even though our down from 3.7 applications per day 2 years ago, we're still averaging about 2.3 applications per day for veterans in need. And that's all across the United States, to include Alaska and Hawaii. And now we moved into Puerto Rico last year. And we have since completed about 13, I think, projects in Puerto Rico just this year in 2024. So if anybody wants to give to us, or you want to share our story, and anybody ever asks you about us, we have all the same things that any other organization would have, right? We have a monthly recurring donation program called the Hearts of Honor Club. We host several events throughout the year. We just had our big event up in DC, our Civil Service Alliance Gala. Just concluded November 12th. We have a golf tournament. We have Take That Hill, which is a cycling event you may be familiar with. Leave Our Homes. We have a portal on our website to see if an employee that gives, if their company will match, they can just type in the name of the company to see if the company will give a matching contribution. Combined federal campaign. So there are about 9.1 people eligible to give through the combined federal campaign, which are the federal workforce, the military, and contractors and the like. And we couldn't do what we would do without number 7 and number 9 for sure. In-kind donations. That could be material or labor, and that labor could be anything from unskilled labor to landscaping and painting a home to skilled labor for electricians and plumbers and roofers and HVAC technicians, you name it. And of course, our volunteers are a big part of what we do. We have thousands of volunteer hours that are attributed to us every year from volunteers all over the United States, whether it be our chapters that are spread out down in Mississippi to New York to Arizona to Alaska. We have chapters. We have a couple other ones here in North Carolina that service the rest of the state. So we go do a project or host an event, there's always volunteer activities or volunteer support that we could use. So please feel free to volunteer and get involved with us any way that you think you might want to. And that's how you reach us. Our website, phhusa.org, and there are all of our handles on all the other social media. And as I mentioned, we're local right here in Statesville. We encourage any or all of you to come and see us, learn more about what we do, hear the story, meet the team, and hopefully you'll share that for us. Tell everybody you know about us and what we do.
Thank you, Paul. Are there any questions for Paul? I know we check in with each other about once every 2 weeks, and after each time I ask him where he's been because he's flying all over the world doing projects for Purple Heart Homes. It's amazing.
I'm tired.
I understand that. Well, Paul, if you can hang on, there may be some questions later on. I actually appreciate Purple Heart Homes a lot. I am on the board with 5th Street and the partnership we have there to support veterans trying to transition into permanent housing has been a great success and program. Recently broke ground on homes, some new homes there. So greatly appreciate the work you've done there in partnership.
We just want to do our small part, Jerry. That's what we do. We provide the housing solutions, and that's really, we're not good at anything else, but we know how to use a hammer and a nail.
Well, I think it's a incredibly worthy cause, and thank you for what you've done for us with Purple Heart Homes, but also as a veteran, Paul. So if there's no more questions, we'll move on to our third presentation. This is Diffuse, Debrief, and Reboot. And Pam Navy will be speaking to us now. Pam, if you want to share your slides.
Can you see it? Are we up?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
All right. Good morning. I have thoroughly enjoyed this. Paul, thank you so much. I am also, as Jerry, I'm on the Fifth Street board, and I've loved Purple Heart for a long time. And just, hey, Paul, Shelly Federal, new employee over there, is my sister-in-law. So she just
Oh,
came
yeah.
in a few months ago, and she's my sister-in-law, but wanted to give her a shout out when you see her. Mike and Stacy, I am a longtime user of red light, blue light therapy, the infrared, and I am walking today because of using that therapy in my life for many years. And I am an owner of medical grade in light therapy units. So I love, love, love what you do. I've done the hyperbaric, I've done the saunas. It is amazing. And I literally cried when Brad Borders was telling me about what you guys do there. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Kay.
It's exciting for me, and I look forward to get down to meet you guys personally and to share in a love of mine. Thank you, guys. So for a couple of folks on the line that don't know me, I'm Pam Navy. I'm Community Resource Coordinator part-time with Statesville Police Department. I retired in December of 2023, only to be out of work for 3 months, which I put a commitment. I went on Fifth Street's board. I went on Piedmont Veterans Assistance Board, and I also went on, or had been on Foundation of Hope's board. And so doing a lot of work in my retirement, but deciding I need to go back part-time. So here I am, 15 to 20 hours a week still at the Statesville Police Department. After 41 years in the criminal justice system, we've been through a lot. And, you know, one of my goals when I retired, and I told many folks, I want to work with the loves of my life, which is veterans, which is the homeless population, and it's people, it's the law enforcement in who are going, you know, in through recovery and through traumatic issues, and how I can do it. So I just want to give you guys just a quick summary. That's my email. My personal connect, and when Jerry reached out to me, I jump at the effort anytime that I can talk. Thanks to Partners Behavioral, I became a facilitator and a trainer in crisis intervention team training. And I take a lot of pride in working with all, you know, of our community partners to get into resource to law enforcement first responders through the CIT training. It's a 40-hour certification, which some of you know about. Many of you have been through it. Many of you are facilitators in it. But I'm excited that we do have a CIT coming up in January, from January 27th to January 31st at Mitchell College. Thank you, Partners Behavioral, for that. And I will be working with Stephanie Funderburk and through that training, as well as Amber and Jeannie, and we've worked together through this. But it's important that our law enforcement officers understand, and our first responders that come to these courses, how to look at a situation, how to diffuse it, how to de-escalate it, and then how to divert for people who are suffering with mental health issues, struggling with it, and or the substance abuse arena, because they so many times with so many folks we have, it goes hand in hand, you know, preaching to the choir here. But I'm also a part of a newly formed Statesville Police Department peer support team. And it was talked about last June, and we now have a formed team of sworn officers, as well as civilian staff, as well as an outside counselor, and we're building that in training. I just last week was just privileged to go to ICISF, International Crisis Incident Stress Foundation, and another training put on by North Carolina Law Enforcement Assistance Program. So, the goal of all these trainings, whether it's the nonprofit NC LEAP or it's the International Crisis Foundation, is to support our law enforcement officers and our first responders, from the firefighters to, EMS, rescue, fire, law enforcement, and how to deal daily with the situation. So I love, love, love that the doors are open, not only at Statesville Police Department, but I know there are other law enforcement agencies within our jurisdiction who get this, who are supporting not only their law enforcement officers, but the families and the staff. And that is what's huge to me, because as you were talking about that residual, that vicarious trauma, if we are in a family, our family deals with that trauma that we deal with. So how do we put all of our resources together to serve? And I see that everyone on this call and the people that have talked, we all have the same mission, the same vision, the same goal. We're just doing different aspects of it. So, thank you, Jerry, for reaching out to me. And on this is the reboot facilitator. I am going to talk just a tad about that. And Jerry, I know the time is very limited and I will be finished within my 15 minutes. Thank you, sir. Jerry's like, oh, Pam's going last. Oh, no. But again, in some of these things, I want to share a couple of strings. What do you do to survive stress in your career? We've all been through these courses. We might drink, we might do drugs, we might do hobby, fitness, family, friends, faith, spiritual activities. All of us on this call are engaged with people daily who turn to these things, many of these negative things, because of their mental health status, because of maybe pain, self-medication, whatever. But, this is also us in this arena, those of us who are brothers and sisters in service. What do we do? How do we function, and how do we keep these things going? We have to stop sometimes and push that reset button. Can we shake it off? Do we sleep it off? Do we share with loved ones? Do we focus on positive aspects only? What do we do? We all have a weird sense of humor. They say law enforcement does, but I believe all of us in this group have that. But, helping professionals are the great at disguising our feelings. And that's a point I want to make, especially for law enforcement and the veterans that I have worked with. They're taught, they're trained, macho, suck it up, buttercup, boys don't cry. I mean, all of those things that are pushed, out there, the authority that they're trained with, being in control. And sometimes it's hard to get to that base person, to get to our hearts. And sometimes that dysfunction, we know, goes to the families. And that's such a great, concern of mine. But different ways, people are silent, people have outbursts for no reason of anger, poor communication skills, and sometimes that crazy humor. So again, these are things all of us know. What can we, do to survive our daily walk, along as the people, our clients, the people that are victims of crime? I'm a victim advocate. Our people who are strung out on drugs because they've been self-medicating for years. But all these things are things we have access to. And, if we could come together, but just getting people to see the need, that we can't do it just by ourselves out here on the street in a silo, that we have to have all of these things involved, go do the therapy, do the treatment, the counseling. And so many people that are afraid of this, and guys, I don't put down any employee assistance programs, but one reason that the Statesville Police Department has a peer-to-peer, they're not gonna not send someone to EAP, but oftentimes EAP can be a restrictor from that person going forward. And we have had an incident, in recent past to where it it was just not a positive experience. And that person is now getting other counseling and other therapy. And we're very happy about that. Now, before I knew OptiVets was on here, before I knew Purple Heart was going to be on here, this was my list. And I will, reach out again, that I had talked a little bit with Brad Borders, who was with Purple Heart Homes, and who now is very supportive and working with OptiVets. And then on the Piedmont Veterans Assistance Council, I work with them, and they provide, excuse me, they provide transportation to medical and, any kind of appointments to the VA, to other services. They provide food, and they have feeding sites across the county. And they also are a great connect. I'll just give you a quick situation. I had a law enforcement officer referred veteran of a veteran who had needs, and the law enforcement officer said it came across him, his power had gone out, he didn't have the money, he had been sick, and Anyway, long story, I reached out to PVAC, they got the information, and they paid, $198 power bill for this veteran. And when they did that simple thing by using what they had access to, it made a world of difference. Now, this veteran and they're working with him with other resources that are working with him to go forward. Also, one part that and I know that OptiVets will be a part of this, I think, is the Veterans Court that is here in Iredell, Veterans Treatment Court, which was developed. And I love Brad's heart. He was one of the pushers for the foundation of that here in Iredell County. And I have worked with several of the veterans coming out of that. Got an email and a text, both from a veteran and his mother yesterday, where the veteran got a job 4 days ago. We had worked with him, and he was coming through that court. And just some more benefit. He was real excited, sent me a picture of him in his uniform and his job. And that's what it's about. We help one person at a time to take that step to healing, to getting better, to getting, more functional. But quickly, before I run out of time and what I was talking about, for those of you that don't know, Reboot is helps people to overcome trauma. And it's a faith-based 12-week course. And they are now doing online work as well. I became a facilitator and a mentor about 6 years ago with Reboot, and I love it. There's story after story after story that you can read online if you don't know about it. It is a great, I say, next step. Or, like if someone has been through the OptiVets and then they want to connect with others who are continuing to deal with this, I see this as a perfect fit to a continuation for a veteran or a first responder to get into that. Now, there is a new group that deals with everyday people, which can be family members, it can be medical personnel, it can be medical, mental health, anybody else that's not in a profession, just anyone that walks in life. And then we do the first responders. And this is the one that I have been mainly involved in, is with the law enforcement, fire, EMS, and telecommunications, hospital emergency, and corrections. Again, this course is amazing because it is set out for first responders and families, or military and their families. And through the course of serving over 20,000 individuals since Reboot has been serving, they see divorce rates dropping, families reconciling, medication abuse decreasing, the suicide numbers are falling, the people willing to go get help, further help, recognizing what I may have a stigma and think it's a weakness in me, that it is not a weakness, that I do have the ability to heal from my trauma. I do have the ability to get my family, back on track in dealing with my trauma. So this is, in a nutshell, things that I believe in. All of you, we can work together. And I do this little slide in things that I do, how do we seek happiness? There's some simple things that we do, but it's important that as we seek the professional help, as we seek the peer support help for our emotional and our mental health, to do things that bring us joy, that bring us happiness, that connect us more with our families. Take the time to do some of these things for ourselves, for those of us who are workers, as we help those who are healing. And I have to throw in just a little bit of cop humor. Whoever said being a cop is stressful? I'm 39 and I feel great, and hey, all units, I've stopped the guy that pays our salary in case any of you want to thank him. But thank you for letting me talk, Jerry. And again, OptiVets and Purple Heart, my heart's there with you. I love you guys. And
Thank you so much, Pam. Are there any questions for Pam about Reboot?
Yeah, that's an excellent program. And she said something that I really hadn't considered, but I think to piggyback from Reboot into what Mike and Stacy have going on with OptiVets, I have to believe that that is a perfect continuation.
I agree with you, Paul. Hey, and I get nothing out of this. This is volunteer time with Reboot, y'all.
We agree with you, Paul. It's a great continuation.
Yeah, I hadn't really put that together until Pam said it, and I was thinking, huh, okay.
Yeah.
And I
Thank you,
reflect.
Pam.
Go ahead, Mike.
I just said thank you, Pam. That was great. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I reflect back, Pam mentioned Veterans Treatment Court. If you recall, that came to Iredell County due to a community cafe where Brad Borders met the Veterans Treatment Court leadership in Catawba County, and that created the movement for Brad to move here. So I point that out because these cafes serve a really huge purpose of connectivity in the community. And I encourage you to go to our YouTube page and check those out in the future. And this one will be posted soon. So please share that. There's some great opportunity there to reach out to some other people. You're all welcome to share on our public YouTube page. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Amber Matthews.
Thanks, Jerry. Thank you all for sticking with us today. We appreciate each and every one of you being here. I want to put in a plug. We are taking December off. We hope that you all enjoy time with your family and friends, loved ones, and enjoy the holiday season. We will be back with Community Cafe on January 22nd at 10 a.m. and just look forward to some of the advertisement about the topics we will cover next. And if you have any ideas or thoughts about topics you would like to see at Community Cafe, please let one of us know. Myself, Jerry, Jeannie, Amani, Krista, anybody you see really that has a partner's background, we would love to hear from you. Thank you and have a lovely holiday week. And we appreciate you all doing everything that you do. Thank you.